We're back with more Tapped Out with Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine on the BetQL network.
Well, as they say, better late than never. It took the UFC 20 years between fights down in Miami, but they are back. UFC 287 tonight. You got a good card. Israel Adesanya, main event, takes on Alex Pereira. Second time in the UFC, fourth time overall. Co-main event, also a banger. Jorge Masvidal versus Gilbert Burns, an all 305 co-main event. Then you got Adrian Yanez, Rob Font, Raul Rosas Jr. takes on Christian Rodriguez, and Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. And that's just the main card. We'll break it down for the next couple of hours here on the BetQL network and try to make some money along with you and Brendan Tobin. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine. And speaking of partners, the UFC has a new one as they have officially merged with the WWE. Endeavor now has themselves about a $20 billion product. I was surprised, Brendan, to see that the UFC was actually valued a little bit more. I'd say a little bit more, $3 billion more than the WWE. So the UFC came in, its value at $12.1 billion, the WWE at $9.3 billion. Before your thoughts, let me tell you real quick, I don't love it. I've always kind of liked, and this is not an anti-wrestling take or a wrestling's for kids or wrestling's fake or we're tough guys, not any of that. I just have always appreciated the fact that the UFC generally, basically this is a walkout conversation. I love the way they do walkouts. I don't think they overdo it. Every now and again, you get a Brian Ortega doing the Purge or an Anderson Silva doing his Michael Jackson or whatever it is. You know, we've seen Stylebender do some cool, but generally it's just the goosies, as you say, are the product itself. That's not really what the WWE is. It's a lot of shtick. It's a lot of backstory. It's a lot of other stuff. So I just hope that they don't try to merge the products together too much. What are your thoughts?
I don't think it's going to be too crazy. That's anything that's going to be too crazy that's noticeable. I think the thing that's interesting about it is the Vince McMahon aspect of it. It's always felt like he's kind of had a little bit of a, a look down at the UFC, because it's a pay-per-view competitor. And so now that they're all under the same roof, and he was looking to kind of do almost the Dana White thing, which is, look, Endeavor is the big boss, but Dana's still the face of it. So I think that's kind of what he was looking for, a thing to make money, but he could still run operations. And especially, amidst all the scandal that Vince McMahon has been in recently over the last 12 months, where he was gone, he was not in control of the WWE, then he came back. And so I think that's the interesting thing of it, that Vince found kind of a taker for his company. But the only thing that I think is going to be kind of cool is that, that we saw a little bit of this. I don't know how much people have been paying attention to AEW, but Dan Lambert at American Top Team had a bit of a crossover with them where he was bringing a lot of his MMA fighters onto their big wrestling show, Paige Van Zandt, the whole deal there. But, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that big of a crossover. Maybe it'd be cool if we get like Bobby Lashley in the Octagon one time or something like that. He's got a bit of an MMA background, but I don't think it's going to be that noticeable.
They already do the burnout UFC fighter goes to the WWE. I mean, don't we see that right now? Like Brock Lesnar has fought in the last 22 WrestleManias, and Ronda Rousey is the cash cow, or one of them, when it comes to WWE, because let's just call it what it is. She couldn't cut the mustard anymore in the UFC. So I don't think that's going to be any different. The crossover the other way is somewhat appealing to me. You know what? Like, you get one of those dudes, you get one of those ladies, and you go, wonder what he or she would look like in an MMA format. What would they look like in the Octagon? So I suppose that has a little bit of appeal. What about fighter pay? Because when you look at what the top, what the Roman Reigns and what the Charlotte Flairs make compared to the UFC, it's not even close. Now, I suppose if you take the top of our sport and the top of their sport, then it gets a little bit. But I'm talking about what the average fighter gets paid. WWE is significantly higher. What do you think happens, if anything, to fighter pay now that it's a $20 billion corporation opposed to two completely separate things?
Nothing. I don't think anything's going to happen, to be honest. Nah, not really. The only way I think it crosses over is if somebody, obviously it's easy to put this person, but like a Connor-like persona can do both and can entertain on both, then there'll be more opportunities to get paid on both. But as far as will, Rob Font make more money today because they're going to get revenue from the streaming networks whenever their TV deal is up? No, I don't think that's going to happen. And, I heard a good point this week of that, usually the fighter, and I know that's not the only days they work because they're training, but the only days that they're on the television product most is usually 4 times a year. A Roman Reigns is on television basically every week, maybe has 2 weeks off a year. So, they're working a lot more dates and I don't want to say putting their bodies through a lot more because one's an actual sport and one's a stunt show, but, is working a lot of dates to earn that money and sells a lot of toys and t-shirts and all that type of stuff. Like, they know who the guys are who push product. And I think overall, as much as WWE, it's the brand, there are still more superstars, I would say, that cross through and can be as big as the promotion. UFC, I mean, it's very, very small number of guys that are actual stars who are bigger than the brand.
Producer Jake, if you could find it, get on the internet, which have never been wrong, and see if you can find the average fighter pay for the UFC right now and the average fighter pay for the WWE. I understand all your points, Brendan, and you're right. I mean, look, wrestling is, call it what it is. It definitely is taxing on the body, incredibly taxing on the body. Very real when it comes to the physical pain, a lot of the contact and all that stuff that happens. So these guys and gals definitely get paid a hefty fee for beating up their body. I'm just curious what the difference is between the two sports. I think that Jorge Masvidal, let's talk about this. He fights Gilbert Burns tonight. Right now, the odds are incredibly one-sided. Gilbert Burns minus 450 on BetMGM. Jorge Masvidal, game bread, plus 340. I saw that 70+% of the money is coming in on Masvidal. Not a surprise. I mean, and by the way, good job, Jake, on getting that. So basically, it's double the salary, just to kind of put a bow on that point. WWE average salary, $250K a year. UFC, right around 100 grand. So good money either way. You're beating up your body either way, but WWE makes twice as much. I just wonder what's going to happen. I wonder if Jorge Masvidal loses this fight. Here's the thing, man. As much as I'd like to see him go out and win, not only does he have the Kevin Holland stuff, that you're talking and you're dealing with a guy in a parking lot right before the fight that's not even your opponent. What are you doing? This is on the heels of all the Colby stuff, right, at the restaurant just less than a calendar year ago that you're still dealing with. And then you mentioned last week he had, and it was a really fun card, that game bred fighting thing. So he's in Milwaukee traveling, doing all these things. So not just focusing strict would be at that time. And then he talks about retirement. And anytime, and Masvidal's a little different because I had to look back and be like, is this the first time he's mentioned this? I actually found some clips where he was talking about retirement or getting out and doing other things before like the Darren Till fight. So this is not the first time that's come out of his mouth. It's been something he's talked about for a while. But then he started winning and hasn't said that for a while. And then he started talking about BMF belts and championship belts and all that stuff. Let's just start with this. If he loses tonight, only because we're talking about the WWE merger and all that, I wouldn't be surprised if he says he's going to keep fighting and he's going to stay with the promotion, but he's switching and he's going into the ring. He's really popular. I don't know if he can win a whole lot more fights. If he loses this one, that'll be what, four in a row? Is that right? 3 in a row, 4 in a row at that point. You're getting older, 38 years old. I think that's what he does. I think he goes, all right, I'm cool with Dana. Now I'm going to be cool with Vince. I'm done, but I'm still here. You think it's crazy to think that if he loses the fight tonight that he just says, I'm done in the octagon?
No, I don't think it's crazy because he said it. I don't think it's crazy. I think it depends on how he loses. Like, I think if you told me, he gets dish ragged and loses to Gilbert and gets choked out, yeah, I would say, or if what happens to him with Usman, the Usman rematch, yeah, I could definitely see him stepping away. If it's a competitive fight, if we have a back and forth affair, if it's a good thing and he just loses, I don't think so. I think that there's still, I think the Holland fights are out there. I think that there are still going to be compelling matchups out there because he's very popular. And I think they're going to throw a lot of money his way. Like, look, dude, there's very few people in this sport that move the needle. Now, I think that he'll be starting to teeter on, will people still pay to watch him if he loses again? that'll be an interesting question. Probably depends on how competitive the fight is tonight. That's a hard thing to answer right now. But
why couldn't he be Ronda Rousey then? Why couldn't he take that path where once it goes downhill there, you find popularity in, I guess I'll say, a different sport? Like, it feels like he could be that guy, right? First fight, they have him come out and flying knee Roman Reigns, and it just feels pretty obvious to me.
Well, dude, because we just talked about going into this segment how he wants to fight 3 people outside the octagon. He's not a pretend fighter. He's straight Jesus. Like, you're gonna have him maybe he'll be into the whole compelling I'll do a couple dates here and there, but nah, I don't think so. I think
listen, man, he might be a better pretend fighter at this point and make more money than be a real fighter. Was he a real fighter back when he was 18 years old? Kimbo Slice in the back of the 305 in the backyards and the YouTube videos. And yeah, was he a real fighter when he was kneeing Ben Askren and knocking out Darren Till? And yeah, absolutely. And winning the BMF belt with Nate? He ain't that guy anymore. If he's that guy, dude, I will fly out to Miami and buy you a steak dinner at the nicest steakhouse in Miami if he goes out there and wins this fight tonight. He doesn't need to knock him out. He doesn't need to choke him out. If he just wins the fight, he should be an underdog tonight around plus 340. I mean, there's no way he wins a fight tonight.
I don't know, man. Like, I mean, like, I really
talk me into it.
I honestly don't understand why you're needling me about this. Like, I agree with a lot of your points, but the thing is like the guys he's lost to are Colby Covington, who's fighting for the belt, and the guy who is the long reigning welterweight champion. It's not like he lost to bums, Like, what are we doing here where we're acting like he's, Cody Garbrandt and he's losing to anybody who blows by his chin and he gets knocked out? Like, let's not act like that's what's happened. It's not, dude. We're overplaying the washedness of him. Like, the guys he's lost to have been the best 2 welterweights on the planet for the last 5 years.
And when's the last time Cody won a fight? Like a month ago, right? When's the last time Masvidal won a fight? What, 3 years ago?
3 years ago.
3.5? 3 years ago.
Yeah,
okay.
Can you name the guy that Cody beat?
Some dude was his name. They call him Some Dude. With Brendan Tobin, I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine. Point well made. With a win, it seems like the promotion. So George right now is ranked 11. We both agree that he could retire. It's always weird when we find fighters in this situation. This is not the first time this has happened, where with a loss, we agree he could retire. Maybe he says, I'm done. With a win, he could fight for the belt. I mean, you want to talk about polar opposite ends of the spectrum. Do you agree that if he wins, that's probably the next thing? That he waits a little while, recovers, and then fights for a belt after this?
Yeah, I mean, the weird thing, it was funny. One of my favorite moments of the press conference was they asked, like, hey, can these guys do anything to sway you? They were asking this to Dana. Can they do anything to sway you from giving Colby the title shot? And he's like, well, look, Colby, came and he made weight, and both Jorge Masvidal and Gilbert Burns both booed him on mic, that's hilarious. Like, how often do you get to boo your boss? I wanted to walk out and boo my program director. I was like, boo. I would love to do that.
Don't do it. But bad idea. Tried it once. Didn't work out well for me. Don't do it.
But either way, no, I think that I guess the update from it is, like Dana says, look, if Jorge wins, he'll get the title shot if Leon can get past Colby, which, okay. I guess it just seems like a strange thing. I don't understand why Colby got to jump. Even though, look, I guess by merit, you could say, look, he handled Masvidal easily. He probably does deserve the title shot. I just think that if I was running a promotion, not saying I could do it better than Dana White, but I do have a guy who's pushing 40. I have the champion who obviously wants this grudge match. It's so obviously one of your biggest pay-per-views available. Why are we overthinking this? I feel like Dana White was always the guy that would always just give the fans the fights they want. And I just feel like lately, not that they've been bad fights, I just feel like we're overthinking things.
Why take one or the other when you can get both? So if Masvidal beats Burns tonight, which, let me reiterate, I would be shocked if it happens and I got to fly out to Miami and buy you a steak. But let's say it happens. We know that Dana has said that Colby's fighting for the belt next against Edwards. So why don't we just wait to see who wins that one and then let George fight the winner? mean, honestly, I don't even know what would be better for the promotion. Like, he's obviously got the grudge match with Colby. Legality-wise, I don't know if they can be within 100 feet of each other. I don't know how that works right now. And then if Leon keeps the belt, then you got the 3-piece in a soda. So why don't you just George wins and then wait? Just chill out, bro.
I guess we just know that I think you're right. Like, people will still buy the Colby fight, but
Of course they will.
we saw it. It wasn't a competitive fight. Like, I think if we're going into that rematch, what are the odds going to be for Colby versus Jorge too? Is Colby going to be a minus 1100?
I don't know, but 3-piece in a soda wasn't competitive for Leon, but I'd like to see it in an octagon. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine Sean Levine. Speaking of fights, coming up next, we fight each other. 2 men fight on your radio. You're locked into the BetQL network.